So, welcome back to the Lift Your Life Up podcast. And I've been saying to you all, I'm going to get a guest on, but everyone's been busy in January, which I think is just people avoiding me, to be totally honest, because no one's busy in January. But I have managed to get a guest on today, and I'm really, really excited for this one because, as you know, I love getting other coaches on to talk about, well, coaching related topics and fitness related topics. And so you don't just have to hear my views on things. And I also, as you all should know on the podcast, know that I like to have a good old discussion about the old slimming world, as you'll know from many of my podcasts. And the amazing lady I've got on today ticks both of those boxes. So I'm really excited for her to share her story, her experiences with you all. But as always, I'm going to let her introduce herself. So if you'd like to let the podcast listeners know who you are, your name, a little bit about yourself, what it is you do, and just maybe if you've got any fun, interesting facts about you that people might not know, but no one ever seems to have, but there must be, fill us in. So, floor is yours. Just a little introduction to the podcast whenever you're ready.
Okay, hello. My name is Faye and I am the owner of FWF Coaching. Don't really know what else to say, really. I'm relatively new to the role. I live in Bournemouth and it's not really a secret fact, but any of my followers will know that I am obsessed with cats. That's the only weird fact, really.
It's a fun fact. It's a little bit of an insight to you. So maybe some listeners right now are thinking, yeah, she's definitely my kind of jam, cat lady. Like you either, I don't think you hate cats, but I feel like cats are one of those animals where people seem to just really love them or just don't really care. I feel like they're quite a polarized animal.
They are a bit of Marmite. They're either lovable or absolute arseholes.
Yeah, I don't hate cats, but I just don't vibe them. That makes sense. Whereas like dogs.
I'm that girl that if you see me walking down the street, I'll make friends with every cat that I go past. I'll try to anyway.
Yeah, I do think cats themselves, the personalities are so different. Like some of the most lovable, sociable things ever, and others literally just want to avoid you. Yeah. Let's not talk about, we could go on a whole tangent here anyway. So when I talk about cats, we're here to talk about Faye's experiences with her own fitness journey, how she is where she is now. And she has a really interesting backstory, which when we just got talking about in the DMs the other day, I was like, we need to get this on the podcast. So let's start at the very, very, very beginning, not at birth, because we don't have all day, but at the start of your fitness journey. So we all have a point where we kind of got started with our journeys for whatever reason. So what was yours? Where did it all start, with the gym or healthy eating? What kind of triggered all that off?
For me, it was back in 2010. I'd been away with some uni friends to South Africa. I remember being really, really not well when I was away, like malaria tablets and stuff weren't great for me. I was unfit. And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm 20, 21 years old. Like, why am I so out of breath? Came home, got tagged in the photos, saw the photos and actually said to my friend, who's that? I don't remember her. Zoomed in and she said, Faye, that's you. And I was honestly so shocked that it was me. I was obviously in denial about my size and my health, and I'd convinced myself that I wasn't that big, buying bigger clothes from Primark and being like, oh, it's because it's the Primark labels and things like that. And then I did probably something that most coaches would dread for a client. I walked into a Slimming World group. I did lose about 3.5 stone with Slimming World. But for me it wasn't sustainable. One of the things that I did absolutely fall in love with at the same time was going to the gym, but I didn't have I wasn't educated on it. I was just going on every machine not knowing what the hell I was doing. So no matter how much weight I lost, maintained, gained, whatever situation I was in throughout that part of the journey, I remember loving being in the gym. That's all I really remember. And then one day I had a light bulb moment. This is way on though, because I did actually, like you said, it's a bit of a weird background, but once I'd lost all my weight with Slimming World, because I was in such this, oh my God, this is magic. I'm eating all this free food, as they call it, and I'm losing all this weight. I need to tell everyone about it. You know, it's the first sort of excitement people know. but I got caught up into it, and I actually became a consultant myself and started running the groups. So that's where I started off with my weight loss journey, basically.
Amazing. And the thing is, I think so many of us do get caught up in some sort of diet club or regime when we start, because ultimately we have an issue, and if something is selling us the solution and it sounds, you know, pretty straightforward and other people are doing it and you see a success, you're going to of course go, well, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. And I actually tried it at first. I've tried following the principles with my family, and I couldn't do it. Just something didn't click for me. But I never really went to the group or anything like that. I just kind of followed what my mum was doing, what my dad was doing, because they both went. But I have many clients who have gone. I've got many friends and family who have gone and heard so many different experiences of it. I've got my own personal beliefs on it based upon, again, what other people have gone through. But hearing that you actually became a consultant, now this isn't something that I've heard many people have gone through it, and then, you know, they've either done well or they haven't, and then they've kind of, you know, come out the other end and realized that it's not the best thing. But I've never actually had anyone become a consultant, which is, you know, quite a big deal. So let's talk about your experiences, that sort of how long you did it for, what your job involved. Did you have any sort of training? Yeah, just kind of fill me in about a little bit about what life was like working as a consultant. Was it paid? All these sort of things people don't really know about.
Yeah, a lot. I think there is. I think people think that consultants are paid. You're actually, you buy the franchise. You're actually self-employed, and your payment is commission, basically based on how many people are in your group.
Got you.
I did very well, and I'll admit that I did. I find that I connect with people quite well by you know, talking about my own experiences. And I think that's a lot of the time that people probably came to the group more for a social than the actual slimming world itself. But that's one thing that I can say, is that with my experience there, what I did see is you do get support as a consultant. You do have a massive community. There is that there, and you're around like-minded people. It is also very stressful, because obviously at the end of the day you are self-employed. It is very sales driven. You very much got to get your name out there, where your group is and things like that. But for me, the thing that always sat in the bottom of my gut was, why is it that I'm not able to help a certain percentage of people get to where they want to be? Why are they struggling so much? And I just felt helpless in that sense, because one of the questions you said is, you know, do you get training? Yes, there is a certain element of training, but I don't feel that it actually educates the consultants, myself at the time, because you never really learn about nutrition. You never really learn about, you know, the exercise called body magic, you know, movement and stuff like that. And I think you as a consultant, a lot of the time you become the person that is supporting someone that is in a bad place.
Yeah.
And you've got no tools to help them, or thoroughly help them. I don't think the training was extensive enough. And it wasn't until I went on later on to do my PT course that it was like, oh my God, what have I been doing?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's something that I've heard from a lot of people, is that people have had very, very mixed experiences with consultants. So some have had very, very positive experiences, and others have had negative. And a lot of the negative experiences have been just that the information relayed has just been wrong. And that's because of the lack of education. And for me, that is something that I think is unforgivable, in that you're putting a woman in a position of authority to dictate to all these women about their health and fitness without just the basic understanding. Knowledge. And how can we do that? You know, that's not okay in any way, shape or form. And a lot of people then come out the other side and think, oh my God, I was told this at Slimming World, and it's just not right. And just like it doesn't have to be like, you know, as in depth as level P2 or 3, but just an understanding of energy balance, understanding of micro and macronutrients. And I think it would really, really help. But so what was your job then? What did you actually have to do? Is obviously you had to try and drive people into the group. And it's quite an interesting one, that, because when you kind of think of the psychology of that, if your job is to get paid based upon numbers, you could then kind of lose sight of what's actually important. And this is something we were just talking about, is like the coaching industry right now is quite sort of money orientated. And ultimately, as a consultant, you probably got into that, like you said, because you had this then passion that this has worked for you and you want to spread the message and spread the success with other women. And that was probably your initial motive. And I'm guessing as time went on, there will have been times where your motive will have been, Christ, if I need to pay the bills here, I need to be getting more women into this group. And it became like a numbers game rather than an actual passion, which if you did well, probably wasn't as big a deal. But I'm guessing there's consultants out there who have maybe lost sight of what's important, which is helping others. And they're just thinking, I need more numbers, I need more numbers, I need more numbers, which is quite sad, actually. But you said you went quite well. So what was your job then? What did you have to do on like a weekly basis, a daily basis? What did the job role involve?
I mean, promoting straight away, that was the top thing. It was always promotion. There were certain times of the year that you'd promote. I'm sure you can imagine what times of the year they were. And it was a case of, to cut a really long story short, the members come in, they pay, they weigh, they decide if they want to take a seat for support or if they go home. For me, I found that it was very 50-50. If 100 people walked through the door, 50 people would leave, 50 people would stay. Or some weeks it'd be 90 people left and 10 people stayed. It just depends on the time of year and what was going on for those people at the time. And then you basically start the group. You go around each person, talk about their results, talk about how you can help them, what got in their way, or if they've been successful, what was it they did differently? Could they share any top tips, any amazing meals that they had? And that part, again, 50-50. It had its challenges because it does very much put you on the spot. And there is training for trying to deal with certain situations. But also there was also the very good positive side of things. And when you see someone, turn it around after a few bad weeks, it was just like, it reminded me why I was doing it, because I'd been in that seat, I'd been that person. And seeing friendships form, two people walk in, absolute strangers, and then within a few months they were like the best of friends and they'd absolutely smash their goals. Like, that's what I loved about it. But it was also heartbreaking when you had someone there that was absolutely miserable and weren't getting the results that they deserved. And I did well in the sense of that, again, I could relate to them and help them with that side of things, but you physically can't take the pain away from someone that's struggling. So that was very, very hard. In respects to what you said as well about like numbers, I think, for any consultant, January is very usually busy, I would say, after the Christmas situation. And then as the numbers start to drop, exactly what you said, you think, oh my God, like I need to pay my mortgage. And then that's when you're kind of in the middle of, I'm passionate about this and I believe in it, to I need to pay the bills, I need to get bums in the seats as such. So yeah.
That's interesting. So I guess the next thing will be just then, because everyone will be thinking, okay, that's cool, and now she's a PT. So when did you stop and why? So what caused you to stop? What was the reason behind it? And then what sort of led you on the trajectory to then going down a different route?
Okay, so I'd lost about 3.5 stone. I'd still been going to the gym, but at this point, again, not educated when it came to any sort of training. It was a case of 6 days a week running myself into the ground, just wanted to keep the number down on the scales. Then I started to realize that I was obsessed with the number on the scales. Then if I had too many sins, if I went over by like half a sin, it was like, oh, I fucking blew it. That, straight away that. And I realized that I had a really negative mind shift. I'd gone from loving this to why am I struggling? Then I couldn't maintain it. Then I was gaining weight. And before I knew it, I was nearly back up to my original weight. So just so that your listeners know, like I started at 15 stone 4, got down to 11 stone 6.5. And then by the end of my slimming world journey as a consultant, when I started my PT course, I was back up to about 14 stone 8. And I was like, okay, what is in my head? I just couldn't understand what was going on. I was doing everything that I'd learned and I'd been taught. Then I noticed that there were a lot of those patterns that I were experiencing in my members. And then I did actually but the last year I became a team leader, and my team did very well. But throughout that, it was lockdown. We were doing it from home. I was struggling even more to help members online, because at that point we were doing it all over Zoom like this. And something in my gut just went, I cannot do this. I don't believe in it anymore. And I found myself talking about calories, because I started to read up on things on Google, and then I started talking to the PTs in my gym, and I just remember going, I'm going to start a PT course. I don't know, it was just, I was like, I'm going to start a PT course. I need to learn, I need to educate myself. And then as soon as I started to realize, because I hadn't quite left Slimming World at that point, I had a real big guilt between wanting to leave and not wanting to let my members down that had been with me for like, what, 4 or 5 years. But I just took the leap. I just handed in my notice, and don't get me wrong, the managers were so supportive. They totally, understood. They were like, you've got to do you at the end of the day. But that's what made me, I was like, I need to just take the leap, and I did it, and I don't regret a single thing at all. At the time that I started my PT course, I did also sign on with an online coach, and she helped me change my mind completely. It was just, it was honestly a switch. I was like, why haven't I done this years ago?
Amazing. So good to hear that, though. It's so good to hear a story of someone, coming out of that mentality and, getting into a place where they're doing something that, because ultimately you're still doing the same job, in that you're helping people to change their food relationship and change their bodies and feel better in themselves, but you're just doing it in a way now that is actually much healthier and actually getting a long-term result. So you're still doing the same job, which is absolutely brilliant. So in terms of what you do now, fill people in on kind of when you sort of started PT, what you do as a PT, and it'd be quite interesting to know actually if any of the things that you learn or did within Slimming World, from like coaching styles or things that you did, you've transferred over into your PT business. Because I think people think of like Slimming World and like personal trainers as kind of like two like fighting things that will never get on. And usually they do have very, very conflicting ideologies, but I do think there is a lot of crossover and a lot of pros and cons to each, which I think we can merge. And from speaking to people who've gone to Slimming World and hearing about the positives of some of the experiences, I've, rather than just being that very stubborn PT going, oh no, Slimming World, I've listened to that and listened to why it's been a success. It'd be interesting to know a bit about what you do now as a coach and a PT, your philosophy, sort of, what you stand for, and have you actually transferred anything across over from Slimming World into the way that you coach and deliver things now?
Yeah, okay, cool. So I've gone completely blank. So as a coach, I mean, at the moment I have my one-to-one PT sessions still, my regular every week, ladies and gents, absolutely love seeing them. I do my boot camps and things like that. Love that, because I love the thought of bringing people together, and I love that community feel. And then my online coaching is a case of I take on women and men, and I want to help them with turning around their mindset and their mental health around food, their body, the relationship with scales. And I want to help pass on my knowledge to them in order for them to break away from any kind of negative, horrible feelings that they may have and they're holding on to inside. And then the training comes along, and then the nutrition comes along, and it all just fits together. I want them to then be able to turn around to me and say, months or whatever, however long it is, I don't need a coach anymore, because they've got the life skills to go and do that and be happy. I don't want anyone to be miserable. And I'm very passionate about that, because I've been in a very dark place, and I don't want anyone to be alone and experience that. With saying that, the things that I learned from Slimming World is that it is so comforting to talk to people that know how you feel, because you can feel very alone, very isolated, and feel like you're going mental, like you're the only one that has this bad relationship with food, or you can't even look at yourself in the mirror in your underwear, or even fully clothed for that matter. I know that's where I've been before. And so for me, I always want my clients to have the opportunity to get to know each other and have that community feeling, to have that support, to be able to talk to people that are like-minded and appreciate, you know what, you're not alone in this. I've been there, I'm experiencing it, we've got your back. So from the Slimming World side of things, community and support is the biggest thing I've taken from it, and I will always implement that into anything that I do with my coaching.
Brilliant. And I guess on the flip side then, it would be quite nice to hear about maybe what things that were valued more within Slimming World that you've no longer doing your coaching, or things that you just think, you know what, that actually isn't more harmful than beneficial, if that makes sense. So things that you've left behind from Slimming World. I
think leading people with knowledge that isn't going to do them any good. So for instance, telling people that you can have this food unlimited and no matter what, you're going to keep the weight off. I like to be realistic, calories in, calories out at the end of the day. That I don't believe in sins. I just think that that's what created quite a bad mindset for me personally, and many of my clients that I've taken on who are ex-Slimming World members. I am fully against restriction, and I am a very lifestyle, if it fits your macros type background. So for me, it's a case of, if you want to eat chocolate and you can fit it in, that's fine. I don't want it to be like, right, limited to X amount. That's just, you know, you must have loads of this, but you can have a little bit of that. It's got to be their choice, because I think the minute you say to someone, you can't have that, well, what do you want to do? You want that. So that's something I won't be taking over into coaching, limiting and restriction, not at all.
No, absolutely. And what about sort of like the scale weight focus? Because I know in Slimming World, that was probably that the biggest thing, isn't it, in terms of sort of like a progress metric is more numbers focus. Do you think that's quite a negative, harmful thing? And do you sort of take a back seat with that now, so to speak? Because obviously it is a tool, a metric of progress if you are on a fat loss journey, for sure. But for me personally, I like to say to my clients, it's just data. It's just one thing amongst the many things that we can gauge our progress on every single week. And I know from clients who have come from like a Slimming World diet club background, where their success was very, very heavily, like we said, you come in, you weigh, and then you can go after that. There's no sort of follow-up. That can be literally like you've done well this week, you've succeeded, or you haven't, which is probably my biggest hate around it, is that focus on, you know, if you weigh in and you lose weight, great, you're amazing. If you haven't and you've gained weight, well, it's not great, but that's not always the case. So how has your sort of mentality changed towards that? Were you okay with that when you were a consultant, and then did that change over time? It'd be quite interesting to know about that, actually.
When you're losing weight, of course you're okay with the scales. I think it was more the not knowing why when it stopped going down or you couldn't maintain it. That's why I don't like being so scale orientated. Exactly like what you said, it is just a number and it measures you as a whole. It's not just saying, oh, you put on fat this week if you've gained. It's a case of, you might be hormonal, maybe you haven't had a crap today, you know, whatever it is. So it was very difficult as a consultant because you only had one thing to go by. Now I give the option to my clients that if you want to get on the scales, fantastic, let's do it. If you feel as though maybe once a month would be better, then let's do that. We need to weigh in at some point just so that we can see where we are. Maybe we need to tweak the calories, etc., etc. But I am more focused on measurements, how they feel mentally, how they feel physically, photos, you know, are the pair of jeans that you've wanted to get in for the past 6 months now on. So it is difficult because I do have some amazing men and women as my clients, and it's been quite a long journey to get their fixation away from that number on the scales and trying to teach them that it doesn't define them as a person in the slightest, or that they've progressed, because there are progress in many other ways.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. And I literally did a webinar this week for my clients on, because so many of them in the check-ins were getting so hung up on the number. I was like, right, I've had enough of this. Let's change our mindset towards it. And again, a lot of these women who joined the webinar live we're the ones who have come from these sort of backgrounds. And I think ultimately it's a very easy way of, you know, sort of quote unquote measuring progress, isn't it? Because it's a number, it's objective, it's there. Whereas sort of how you feel and pictures and things, it's a bit more subjective, or it's a bit of a slower change. Like week to week, you might not see a physical change in yourself, but week to week, you can see a number change, which is, I think, why people do get hung up on it. But what I've said to mine now is the more you actually educate yourself on the scale, which I think, again, is something missing from Slimming World, is scale weight education, in terms of why it changes, what it actually measures, what is it actually showing you? Because now that it's data, and I say to my clients, look, I honestly I'm not bothered about what that number says, because I just look at it as data and I can learn more about my body. And you can actually find it quite interesting when you change your mindset, because you can learn how your body reacts under times of stress, how your body reacts under hormonal changes. Like I know I've had a few really shit weeks, and my scale weight just is not coming down, even though my calories have been a bit lower, my output's been a bit higher. So logically speaking, probably should be coming down a bit or maintaining, and it's kind of hovering up. And I know, because I know my body, that is purely stress driven. So it's quite interesting, I think. And I think, again, it's just a total mindset shift, isn't it? Which I think will be so helpful within these diet clubs. Is you don't have to become like a nerd like me and enjoy the scale weight education, but just that basic bit of knowledge to go that does not define your progress. Because one thing that I resonate with and remember so much, and you can probably relate to this yourself or with the members you dealt with, is my mum went once and she went buzzing. She'd had this, I've done amazing. I've ticked every box. I've been so good this week. And again, I hate that good and bad mentality. You're not a freaking child. You're not being good or bad. You're being a freaking human.
Yeah.
But she felt amazing. So hyped. And I remember coming back that night, and I couldn't see her. I was like, oh, where's Mama? How's she done? How much has she lost? And Mad went, just don't talk to her. I said, why? She goes, she's put on a pound, and she's been in the bedroom crying
Devastated.
all night.
Yeah.
And I was like, but why is she upset? Because she's had an amazing week. You know, she's gone to the gym. She's got back into the gym. She's crushed her diet. She's done freaking amazing. And because that one number has gone up, she now thinks less of herself as a human. She now thinks, what is the point? And this is, again, it can be so demotivating for people, because they then do get in that headspace of, why do I carry on? Why do I do all this? And it's like, well, you've been amazing because you've proven to yourself that you can be consistent, which for a lot of people is huge, because you've got to change your habits and behaviors, which is hard. You know, some people getting into the gym, it's anxiety, it's a new habit, and all of these things that you need to celebrate. And if you're feeling amazing, like you feel a little bit more energized, and you maybe feel a little bit, because she said, oh, I'm feeling slimmer. You're feeling slimmer, then brilliant. Then who cares what that number says? Like I say to my clients sometimes, like, right, if I could take 10 pounds off the scale or drop like 2 dress sizes and you feel like an absolute boss ass queen, which you're picking? Second. Say no more.
Yeah. It's such a, when people ask me about my experiences with Slimming World, my experience as a member and my experience as a consultant are very blurred, and it's quite hard. And do you know what? There are consultants that are still working there that I know. There are people that have left that, and every single one of them are wonderful human beings that genuinely care about these people, and they've either stayed for the fact that they're doing fine or they still believe in it. And some people have left because their time's up with it. They've done fine. They don't need it anymore, or they've left because they've had the same experience as I have. And exactly like you said, it doesn't matter who you speak to. Everyone's had a different experience. And I think that's why it's probably quite blurred information out there as to what you're going to get when you walk into a group. But from my experience, it was like this magical thing that once I finally found out how it did actually work, it was like, okay, I don't understand how I've been losing weight. And then it just became a very dark place, because I think it did form a bad relationship with food personally, and I did form a binge eating disorder towards the end of it, but I kept that very quiet for a long time until I accepted it myself. Which is why I went with a coach who really, oh my god, the amount, I literally turned up to my consultation with her and I just cried. I don't even know if I said anything, and she was like, you need to get out. And I remember walking in 2 weeks later, I was like, I've quit, I've got signed up to a PT course, and I was just so excited. And well, now I'm here talking nonsense about it. So
That's brilliant. It's a really lovely story as well, because it's really lovely to see when someone has come out of the end of that and is in a much stronger place in their body, with their knowledge, with their food relationship. It's really lovely to hear and see that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So because you've had such a whirlwind of an experience, you know, you've had your ups, you've had your downs, and now you're freaking killing it. You know, you're now helping other people to do the things that you know, that's what you set out to do. And now you can do that much more effectively. You know, it's what you set out to do years ago. And now you're doing that, but in a much better way. Yeah. So the kind of last message that I wanted to get from you, just to share with the listeners, for maybe anyone out there who is struggling with dieting, struggling with their food relationship, struggling with body image, feeling a little bit lost, because this time of year is quite a tricky one, because you do come out of that post-Christmas period. And a lot of people then decide, you know what, maybe I want to do something about my body and I want to change it. But because there's so many, there's just so much, isn't there, out there now? Everyone's a coach. There's PTs everywhere. Marketing for diets and clubs and healthy eating is like at its highest. It's really, really hard to know what to do.
Yeah.
So obviously we can't tell you what to do, because everyone's decision is their own. But I think it would be good to hear from yourself, from your own personal experiences, just some bits of advice that you can give to other ladies out there who maybe are where you were, who are maybe a little bit happy in their body right now, struggling a little bit, maybe have joined a diet club, think about going back, or think about starting one. Honestly, what would you say to people in terms of what maybe they should do, what they should look to do, anything that maybe you would totally avoid? Let's just hear your bits of advice.
The first thing I'm going to say to avoid is, please don't drink juices and detox and smoothies. Please don't do it. You've got to live your life and have real food. In my personal experience, if something in your gut doesn't feel right, or you don't understand, if you're just feeling confused, like you're not succeeding, if you're unhappy, then I would, like, if they're doing something right now, i.e. if they're doing Herbalife or whatever, and they're thinking, oh my God, I don't feel right and I'm not succeeding, and they're not happy and they're not living their life just, normally, I would avoid that straight away. If it doesn't feel right, avoid it. It's really hard. I don't want to send any sort of, message out there to say you must do this. Every person's different. Everyone's got to find what fits them. So I think that is, I suppose, then really the advice I would give is go out there, try different things, and just give it a go, because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as failure. There's a thing such as learning a lesson, and that's absolutely fine, because that goes along with educating yourself. And then when you find something that makes you happy, you're not restricting yourself, you start to form a relationship with yourself and your body again, then that is what is right for you. For me, it was the freedom of being able to eat whatever I want and still get progress. That for me was the biggest thing. And look at myself butt naked and be okay with it.
So I guess what a good message for that would be then, if instead of telling it to these other ladies, if you could go back in time to the you that started, when you saw those photos, and what would you tell her then? What would you tell her to do in that situation? Because I know you could argue that experience of Slimming World was needed to shape who you are right now. And that's what I say about all of my life experiences with my mental health and my own body, my eating disorder. It's like, yes, in some respects, I wish it never happened, because obviously no one wants the bad stuff to happen to them. But would I be where I am right now if those things hadn't happened?
I don't think I would be.
No.
I don't think, no.
But if we take the philosophical edge off it and be like, we wouldn't be the women we are today. What bit of advice would you give the old you to avoid all of this sort of the mental ups and downs that you have had? What would you actually say to her?
Don't be so hard on yourself. Just love yourself. And it's easier said than done. Keep going. And things work out in the end, no matter whether it's, weight related, anything that you're going through in your life at that point. Just keep going and know it will get better. That just don't give up on yourself. That I was, because there were times where it was pretty dark, and oh God, I can remember those feelings. It was absolutely awful. So I would just go back and say to myself, don't be so hard on yourself. Keep going. You've got this.
Amazing. Would you have would you have given the old you the advice of to go find like a PT or coach to help you on your journey? Or do you think, like, I guess it's quite a hard one, isn't it, when you have had that experience, because the ups and the downs have made you who you are, but knowing what you know now, would you have rather just gone in and learned straight away from the get-go, do you think, in terms of nutrition? And
I think I would have liked to have known, not so much for myself, I think I would have liked to have known the educational side of things, nutrition and exercise and training, for the people that I ended up supporting. For them, I wish I had, because that's what I love to do, is help others. For myself, I think that actually what I've gone through emotionally, physically, has actually made me mold myself into a complete different person. So the person I was back then compared to now, that they're not the same people. No. And actually the things I've gone through enable me to hold a client's hand and be like, you know what, I've got your back, I've been there. And so I think if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be able to coach as well as I do.
Agreed.
Sounds a bit big-headed, but I do pride myself in the fact that I love to support them.
I agree
wholeheartedly. So
I think there's a total huge difference between understanding and relating. Like, I honestly know for a fact, and you'll be able to 100% relate to this, that we can sort of look at a client's problem from the surface, but when we've had something similar, the level of empathy that you can have and understanding, it really levels up the coaching experience, because you can really understand the emotions and the behaviors and actually have practical, tangible strategies, rather than just reading something from like a textbook, which never freaking works, by the way, because we're humans. We're not, science objects that just keep computer programs. We all have individual needs. So I agree. People say to me, do you just wish you'd found your PT straight away? It's like, well, maybe in some respects, yes, but you have to go through the lows to experience the highs better. So that's one thing for everyone going through anything crap, is I always say to people that negatives always will turn into a positive, because right now it might seem shit, but you will grow as a person from it, you will learn from it, and you will only get better. So never see failures or setbacks as negative, because you will only get better from it and learn from it and be better. Because if we just knew everything straight away and got it right from the get-go with everything, life would be so boring. Like, I'm saying this off the back of having a very, very stressful week, and I'm just like, I wish everything was just so much plain sailing. But it's developing my skill set in different things and my resilience, and these things do build you to be a better person. So finishing on a very philosophical note there, but I think it needed to be said, because regardless to health and fitness, with anything in life, negatives will build you up as a person and make you better at your job, as a person, as a mum, in your fitness endeavors. So if you're going through so much shit now and you feel like a failure, you'll get better from it. You'll grow from it.
Massive lessons. I always say there's no such thing as, oh my God, I'm a failure. It's okay, I failed at that, but you know what, I learned this from it and I know what to do moving forward. And without those, you're never going to move forward as a person.
No.
So actually, I think you should see, quote unquote, failures as actually there are positives to having them. Definitely.
It's the whole growth and fixed mindset, isn't it? Fixed mindset is, I failed, that's it, be all and end all, that's who I am. Growth mindset is, okay, what do I do from here? How can this better me? How can this make me better? So I hope that has ended the podcast in quite a positive, actually, because it's giving people something to go away and be like, yeah, I'm a failure, but I'm amazing. To listen to this podcast. But before we wrap this up, is there anything on this topic that we've not covered that you think is important for people to know, or do you think we've
I think we've pretty much covered it. I would just say, if you're struggling, with your fitness, your health, whatever, just reach out, ask for help, get that information. If it's not for you, move on and find something else or someone else, because not every coach, not every client that comes to me finds I'm the coach for them.
No, absolutely not.
There's so many coaches out there that I know that are amazing, like yourself, that will bring some sort of real positive element to that journey. And every coach I've been with, I've taken something away from it that has made me the person I am as a client and as a coach. So just reach out and ask for help.
100%. And I think that actually lends itself very nicely onto the the where can people find you question over on Instagram, because I'm sure, like me, we aren't those coaches that are like, if you slide in our DMs asking us a question, you got to pay us for it. I'm always happy if someone's got a question or just, a general sort of inquiry about something. I am going to answer it, because it's like, I'm not giving you a full diet or training plan or anything. If you just want to know one little quick question that I can answer, of course I'm going to answer it. I'm a human, and I'm sure you're the same. So if people do have any questions, because people might actually off the back of this, who can relate to your experiences, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. So my handle is at FWF Coaching. There's a picture of me looking a lot more feminine than I do now.
I can relate to those. The nice photography photos that we get of ourselves. It's like, that's not me at all. But
Catfish.
If I actually put, I know I do that when I put like my Instagram photos. I'm on a consult call. I'm like, God, people are actually going to think, who's this? Catfish by a coach. But we have to do it. If I actually put a real, like, this is at me every day selfie as my Instagram caption, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm not working with this tramp. But I will put your Instagram in the show notes as well. So if people have missed that, it's in the show notes, guys. So please do give her a follow. She's absolutely lovely. She's got loads of amazing content. So do give her a follow, give her a support. If you've enjoyed this, give us both a tag on Instagram as well. Just tag us both, screenshot it or whatever, tag us, because it'd be lovely for us to see that you've listened and that it's been helpful. But as always, everyone, have a fantastic day, whether you've been listening to this on a walk, doing some work, whatever. Hope it's been interesting. I hope Faye has brought you some amazing insight into the world of slimming world and her experience. And I hope it's been interesting, because it's definitely been interesting for me to learn about someone going through the process, but actually being a consultant as well. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we will see. Well, I will see you on next week's episode. I'm sure I will be bringing Faye back for another one, but yeah, she's not coming next week. I need a break. I need to do a solo one. Have a good one, guys, and I'll catch you in a bit.